The message that should have ended him. 3 words. 1 mistake. And a room full of people who were waiting for him to fall. When Daniel Carter hit send, he didn't look at the screen. He was thinking about his daughter. He was thinking about the way she had clutched his sleeve that morning and whispered, "Don't be late again, Daddy." He was thinking about the fever that wouldn't break. He was thinking about the rent due in 5 days. He was not thinking about the fact that the last message thread open on his company phone wasn't his babysitter. It was his boss. He didn't realize until the read receipt appeared. Read by Victoria Hale. Geo. Daniel's stomach dropped so fast it felt like gravity had doubled. He opened the thread. There it was. "I miss you." Set. Delivered. Read. To the woman who once fired a senior manager for being 3 minutes late to a board presentation. To the woman who believed personal distractions were a sign of professional weakness. To the woman who built Hale and Rowe Consulting into a ruthless industry giant by removing anything, or anyone, inefficient. Victoria Hale didn't do softness. She didn't do forgiveness. She didn't do mistakes. For 6 years, Daniel had survived by staying invisible. He was 35. Widowed. Raising a 5-year-old daughter named Lily alone after a car accident took his wife 2 years earlier. He didn't talk about it. At work he was the quiet one. Always early. Always precise. Never personal. Because he knew something everyone else didn't. This job wasn't ambition. It was oxygen. Lose it and everything collapsed. His daughter's school. Their apartment. Her asthma treatments. Everything. For 40 seconds nothing happened. Then the glass door of Victoria's corner office opened. And the entire floor went silent. Keyboards froze mid-stroke. Phones lowered. Chairs stopped rolling. She stepped out in her charcoal suit, heels striking the tile with measured calm. Not rushed. Not angry. Just deliberate. And she walked directly toward him. Not scanning the room. Not checking notes. Eyes locked on Daniel Carter. Every step felt like a countdown. Daniel stood automatically. His hands felt numb. His heart pounded so loud he was sure everyone could hear it. She stopped inches from him. Close enough that he could see the faint line near her left eyebrow, a scar from a childhood accident people whispered about. Close enough that he could smell espresso on her breath. She leaned in. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Just enough so only he could hear. And she whispered, "Say it again." Not furious. Not amused. Not mocking. Something else. Something unreadable. Daniel's throat closed. It was a mistake, he managed. Her eyes didn't blink. Say it again. The entire office watched, confused, electric tension stretching through the air. Daniel swallowed. "It was meant for my daughter," he said quietly. "She's sick." Victoria held his gaze for 3 long seconds. Then she straightened, turned, and walked back into her office. The door shut. No comment. No reprimand. No HR call. Nothing. And somehow, that was worse. By the end of the day, the story had already mutated. No one knew what she had whispered. But everyone knew she had leaned into his space. Everyone saw her expression. Everyone saw him go pale. By Friday the narrative had evolved. "Did you hear?" Daniel texted her something personal. "I heard." She smiled. "I heard she told him to come to her office later. I heard." Rumors never need facts. They only need curiosity. And Daniel had accidentally handed the building a spark. Mark Dalton noticed first. Senior strategist. 6 years at the company. Twice passed over for promotion. He had the kind of smile that felt polite and predatory at the same time. He didn't like Daniel. Daniel's quiet competence irritated him. Men like Mark preferred loud competition. Silence felt threatening. Now he smelled opportunity. He started small. A comment in the break room. Must be nice to have connections. A raised eyebrow during a team meeting. Some people get special treatment, I guess. He never said Victoria's name. He didn't need to. The implication did the work. By Monday, Daniel found a sticky note on his keyboard. Bold move. No signature. By Tuesday, someone had rearranged his desk. Nothing missing. Just touched. A warning. By Wednesday, he stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. He put headphones in even when nothing was playing. At night, he sat on Lily's bedroom floor while she slept, counting expenses in his head. Rent. Medication. School fees. Groceries. He could not lose this job. He could not afford pride. He would endure. He always endured. Then came the email. Subject line. Mandatory all-staff meeting, 2 p.m. From Victoria Hale. No agenda. No explanation. The last time she had called an emergency meeting, 2 department heads were terminated publicly. Daniel's mouth went dry. This was it. She was going to correct the misunderstanding. Make an example. Restore order. The hours crawled. At 1:55 p.m., the main conference room was packed. Employees stood shoulder to shoulder. Whispers died the moment Victoria entered. She stood at the front of the room. No notes. No slides. Just presence. It has come to my attention, she began calmly, that a private misunderstanding has been distorted into workplace gossip. Silence thickened. I will not repeat the rumor, she continued. Repeating it would legitimize it. Her eyes scanned the room slowly. Anyone spreading unverified personal information about a colleague, through messages, conversation, or suggestion, will be terminated immediately. No warning. No review. Immediate. This company was built on performance, not speculation. If you have time to gossip, you have too little work. The meeting ended in less than 3 minutes. She walked out. No names mentioned. No explanations. But everyone knew. It was about Daniel. And that knowledge shifted something dangerous. Before he was a curiosity. Now, he was protected. And protection in a competitive corporate environment feels like favoritism. Favoritism breeds resentment. Resentment breeds sabotage. Mark adjusted his approach. If he couldn't attack Daniel socially, he would attack him professionally. 2 days later, Daniel presented a financial analysis he had spent 72 straight hours perfecting. Halfway through, Mark interrupted. I'm seeing inconsistencies on slide 12. There weren't. It looks sloppy, Mark added casually. The room's energy shifted. Daniel felt heat rise in his neck. The data aligns with. Mark cut him off. Let's just make sure we're maintaining standards. It wasn't about data. It was about perception. And perception spreads faster than truth. 2 days after that, Daniel received an email. Subject: Conduct and Performance Review. Moved up from next quarter. With HR present. No explanation. He stared at the calendar invite. He understood corporate language. Accelerated review meant someone had filed concern. Someone was building a case. He didn't need to guess who. That night, Lily's fever spiked. He sat beside her hospital bed at 1:30 a.m., answering work emails from his phone while holding her hand. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. He was tired, scared, and running out of emotional bandwidth. At 7:12 a.m. the next morning, his phone buzzed. A text. From Victoria Hale. Just 4 words. How is your daughter? Daniel stared at the message. Confused. Suspicious. He typed carefully. Still at the hospital. Asthma complication. The typing dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Take the day. No exclamation point. No extra words. Just instruction. He stared at it. Take the day? He didn't have PTO left. He had used it during Lily's last hospitalization. He hesitated. Then responded. I don't have remaining leave. 3 dots. Then. Take the day. That was it. No explanation. No HRCC. Nothing. Daniel exhaled slowly. For the first time in 2 weeks, something didn't feel hostile. But he didn't know why. And not knowing was almost as unsettling as the rumors. Because Victoria Hale did nothing accidentally. And kindness from powerful people usually came with purpose. He just didn't know what that purpose was. Yet. The review that was supposed to break him. Wednesday arrived like a verdict. Daniel didn't sleep the night before. Not because he was rehearsing arguments. Not because he was angry. But because exhaustion and fear don't let the mind shut down. At 8 a.m., he dropped Lily at school with a kiss pressed to her hair and a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. I'll be there at pickup. I promise. He had never broken that promise. He couldn't start now. At 10:57 a.m., he stood outside conference room 4B. Frosted glass. HR inside. He could see silhouettes. 3 of them. One was definitely Mark. Of course it was. Daniel inhaled once, steady and quiet. Then he walked in. Inside sat a Melissa from HR, polite smile, neutral eyes. His direct supervisor, Thomas Avery, uncomfortable posture. A Mark Dalton, composed, almost relaxed. An empty chair waited for him. The chair always feels symbolic in rooms like that. Sit down and defend yourself. Stand up and lose. Daniel sat. Melissa folded her hands. Daniel, this is a performance and conduct review. Concerns have been raised regarding professionalism, communication tone, and team alignment. Professionalism. Tone. Alignment. Corporate words for, We're building a narrative. Thomas cleared his throat. There have been reports that you've responded defensively in meetings. Defensively. Daniel kept his voice steady. Can you give an example? Mark leaned forward before anyone else could speak. Last Thursday, when I pointed out inconsistencies in your financial projections. There it was. Daniel nodded slowly. The rounding variance was less than 0.5%. Mark smiled faintly. It's not the variance. It's the reaction. Daniel felt it then. This wasn't about math. This was about positioning. Mark wasn't trying to prove incompetence. He was trying to prove instability. And instability is easier to terminate than gossip. Melissa slid a printed sheet across the table. 3 bullet points. Perceived agitation in meetings. Defensive responses when questioned. Unclear communication boundaries. Unclear communication boundaries. Daniel almost laughed. The irony burned. The room felt small. He could fight. He could defend every bullet point. He could demand specifics. But something in him shifted. Instead of pushing back, he asked quietly, "Has my work performance declined?" Thomas hesitated. No. Have client outcomes suffered? No. Have deadlines been missed? No. Silence settled. Daniel leaned back slightly. Then this isn't about performance. Melissa's polite smile tightened. It's about culture fit. There it was. The most flexible justification in corporate vocabulary. Culture fit. Which often means, we don't like how you make us feel. Before Daniel could respond, the door opened. No knock. No warning. Victoria Hale stepped in. The temperature in the room changed instantly. Melissa stood. Thomas straightened. Mark's composure flickered, just slightly. Victoria closed the door behind her. I'll take it from here. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. Melissa hesitated. This is a scheduled review. I'm aware. She pulled out a chair and sat at the head of the table. Not beside anyone. Above them. She folded her hands. Mark, she said calmly, eyes locking onto him, repeat your concern. Mark shifted in his seat. It's about Daniel's professionalism and tone in meetings. Specific example. The projection discrepancy. Which you escalated to leadership, Victoria interrupted. Mark blinked. Yes. Victoria turned her gaze toward Thomas. What was the discrepancy percentage? Thomas swallowed. 0.46%. And the acceptable internal variance threshold? 1%. Victoria nodded once. So it was within tolerance. Silence. Mark tried to recover. It's not just about numbers. It's about perception. Victoria finished. Mark's jaw tightened. Yes. Victoria leaned back. Perception is shaped by influence. She paused. Influence is shaped by intention. Now she turned fully toward Mark. Did you submit the anonymous message found in the 9th floor restroom? The air snapped. Daniel's head lifted. Mark's face drained of color. What message? Victoria reached into her folder and placed a printed image on the table. Security footage still. Time-stamped. Mark entering the restroom holding a folded paper. Minutes later, same restroom stall. Paper visible inside. Mark stared at it. Nobody breathed. I had facilities review footage after the second anonymous complaint was reported. Victoria continued evenly. I do not tolerate internal sabotage. Melissa looked stunned. Thomas looked sick. Mark's composure shattered. This is ridiculous, he said quickly. You can't prove I don't need to prove motive, Victoria replied. I only need to confirm behavior. She slid another document forward. IT logs. Anonymous internal message traced to Mark's workstation. Timestamp aligned. Room silent. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Not relief. Not triumph. Clarity. Victoria stood. Mark Dalton, you are terminated effective immediately for misconduct and violation of workplace integrity policy. No yelling. No theatrics. Just precision. Melissa looked startled. Should we schedule? No, Victoria said calmly. Security will escort. Mark stood abruptly. This is because of him, he snapped, pointing at Daniel. You're protecting him. Victoria's expression didn't change. I protect performance. I eliminate liability. Security arrived within 2 minutes. Mark was escorted out past the glass walls, past the desks, past the eyes of everyone who had whispered. And suddenly the narrative flipped. The man who planted suspicion. Removed. Publicly. Cleanly. The same way Victoria always operated. Daniel remained seated, still processing. Victoria turned toward him now. The room empty except for them. You asked earlier if your performance declined, she said. Yes. It hasn't. Silence. Do you know why I told you to say it again? Daniel swallowed. No. She held his gaze. Because no one in this building has ever texted me something human. That landed heavier than he expected. She continued. When you said it was for your daughter. I believed you. Daniel blinked. Why? Victoria's eyes softened, not weak, just honest. Because you didn't try to turn it into an advantage. She gathered her folder. Your review is cancelled. Focus on your work. And your child. Then she paused at the door. One more thing. Daniel looked up. Don't shrink because others are insecure. And then she left. By noon the entire building knew. Security escort. Termination. Evidence. The whispers didn't just stop. They reversed. Now the story was different. Daniel wasn't protected. He was vindicated. And for the first time in 3 years, people looked at him differently. Not with suspicion. Not with envy. With something closer to respect. But the real shift hadn't even started yet. Because that accidental text? It wasn't just a mistake. It was the beginning of something Victoria Hale had been quietly planning for months. And Daniel Carter was about to learn that the most powerful person in the building had been watching him long before he ever hit send. The man no one was watching. Except her. The building felt different on Monday. Not louder. Not friendlier. Just recalibrated. People who had avoided eye contact now nodded at Daniel in the hallway. A junior analyst asked for his input during a strategy huddle. Someone even moved aside in the elevator instead of pretending he wasn't there. Respect doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it arrives in silence. Mark's desk was cleared by noon Friday. By Monday morning someone new occupied it. No announcement. No farewell email. Just absence. Corporate ecosystems correct themselves fast. But Daniel didn't feel victorious. He felt cautious. Because Victoria Hale had done something no one expected. She intervened personally. And powerful people don't intervene without reason. Tuesday morning, 8:12 a.m. An email appeared in his inbox. From Victoria Hale. Subject. 7:30 p.m., stay late. No greeting. No explanation. Daniel stared at it. 7:30 p.m. meant after hours. After Lily's pickup. After dinner. He couldn't stay late. He typed carefully. I have childcare responsibilities after 6 p.m. 3 minutes passed. Then her reply. Bring her. Daniel read it twice. Bring her? To a corporate office? To the executive floor? His instinct was to decline. To stay invisible. But something told him this wasn't optional. At 7:26 p.m., Daniel stepped into the nearly empty lobby holding Lily's hand. She wore her oversized pink sweater and carried her inhaler in her tiny backpack. Her hair was tied into uneven pigtails he'd done himself. Daddy, she whispered, staring at the tall glass building, are we in trouble? He knelt down in front of her. No. We're just meeting someone important. Like a princess? He smiled softly. Something like that. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt surreal. When the doors opened, the lights were dimmer than usual. The floor almost silent. Victoria stood near the window, city lights glowing behind her. No blazer. No heels. Just a simple navy sweater. She looked human. She turned as they approached. Her eyes landed on Lily first. Then softened. So this is who you miss, she said quietly. Daniel nodded. Yes. Victoria crouched down so she was eye level with Lily. I'm Victoria. Lily looked at her seriously. You're the boss. Pause. A small smile from Victoria. Yes. Are you mean? Daniel froze. But Victoria didn't. Sometimes, she replied honestly. But not to children. Lily considered that. Then nodded once. Okay. Victoria stood and gestured toward the conference table. There were coloring books laid out. Juice boxes. And a small stuffed elephant. Daniel blinked. You planned this? I prepare, Victoria said simply. Lily ran toward the coloring supplies. And just like that, the tension dissolved. They sat near the window overlooking the city. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Victoria said without looking at him. Do you know what I did before this company? Daniel shook his head. No. I was a litigation attorney. Corporate law. I specialized in internal compliance failures. That surprised him. You don't seem like a lawyer. She glanced sideways. That's intentional. Silence again. Then she continued. 3 months ago I began an internal audit. Not financial. Daniel listened carefully. Cultural. The word settled heavily. I've built a profitable company, she said. But profit without integrity collapses eventually. Daniel understood what she wasn't saying. Mark wasn't the first. He was just the loudest. I've been reviewing team leads quietly, she continued. Observing behavior. Influence patterns. Decision integrity. Daniel felt something shift. You were watching him. Yes. And me? Finally she turned fully toward him. Yes. His pulse ticked up. Why? Because you never participate in gossip. You never overstate data. You never attach yourself to power. She paused. You also leave every day at 5:59 p.m. sharp. He felt exposed. I have a daughter. I know. That word landed differently. I know about the accident, she added gently. Daniel's chest tightened. How? Your HR emergency leave file. He hadn't thought about that paperwork in years. Victoria continued. I lost someone too. That caught him off guard. My younger brother, she said. Asthma complications. When we were children. Daniel looked at her differently now. Not as a CEO. As someone who understood hospital hallways. Beeping monitors. Fear that sits in your bones. That's why, she said quietly, when you texted I miss you, I didn't assume manipulation. Lily giggled across the room, proudly holding up a scribbled elephant drawing. Victoria walked over. That's excellent, she told her sincerely. Lily beamed. Daniel watched something he never expected to see. The most feared woman in the company, kneeling beside his daughter, asking about crayons. When Lily was distracted again, Victoria returned to the window. I'm restructuring leadership. Daniel stiffened slightly. This company needs people who can influence without intimidation. She looked at him directly. I'm offering you a promotion. He blinked. What? Director of Strategic Analytics. That was 2 levels above his current role. He almost laughed. I think you're overestimating me. No, she replied calmly. You underestimate yourself. He shook his head slowly. People won't accept that. They don't have to accept it, she said evenly. They have to adjust to it. Daniel's mind raced. Promotion meant higher pay, better healthcare coverage, more stability for Lily, but also visibility, scrutiny. Why me? He asked again. Victoria's answer was immediate. Because you're the only person in that building who doesn't crave power. That hit harder than flattery. You work for survival, she said. Not ego. That makes you dangerous in the best way. Lily suddenly ran up and wrapped her arms around Victoria's leg. Are you coming to my school play? She asked randomly. Daniel froze. Victoria looked down. When is it? Next Friday. Daniel whispered quickly. She doesn't? I'll be there, Victoria said. Daniel stared at her. You don't have to. I don't make promises lightly. Lily nodded, satisfied, and ran back. Victoria's voice dropped. Leadership isn't about fear, Daniel. It's about consistency. She extended her hand. Will you accept? Daniel looked at his daughter. At the city. At the woman who had every reason to remain distant, but chose not to. Slowly he shook her hand. Yes. The announcement went out Thursday morning. Internal memo. Promotion effective immediately. Daniel Carter, Director of Strategic Analytics. The building exploded. Whispers. Disbelief. Some resentment. But no one could argue the metrics. His performance record was spotless. Client retention under his analysis was highest in the department. The numbers spoke. And this time, the numbers were on his side. By Friday afternoon, something else happened. An email circulated quietly from HR. Mandatory leadership training on ethical influence and anti-sabotage policy. Signed personally by Victoria Hale. Instant karma doesn't always roar. Sometimes it restructures. Sometimes it promotes integrity. Sometimes it removes poison quietly and elevates resilience publicly. Daniel walked past his old desk that evening. Then into his new office. Glass walls. City view. Responsibility. He sat down slowly. Not triumphant. Grounded. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Remember what I said? He replied. About not shrinking? 3 dots appeared. Yes. And one more thing. Pause. Say it again. Daniel smiled softly. He typed 3 words. I miss you. Across the hall, through the glass walls, Victoria glanced at her phone. And for the first time in years, she smiled without calculation. The boardroom trial. Promotion changes your office. It doesn't change everyone's opinion. By Monday morning, Daniel's new title had settled into the company system. His email signature updated. His access level expanded. His glass-walled office reflected a skyline that suddenly felt heavier. But outside that glass? Resistance. Not loud. Not obvious. Just tight smiles. Delayed responses. Meetings scheduled without him. The same people who once ignored him now watched him carefully. Some with curiosity. Some with calculation. And a few with quiet hostility. Because instant karma doesn't erase insecurity. It exposes it. The real test arrived faster than anyone expected. Wednesday afternoon. Emergency executive board session. Investors present. Quarterly forecast crisis. A multimillion-dollar client was threatening to pull their contract after a projected loss report surfaced. A report built from analysis Daniel had overseen in his old role. The numbers were accurate. But they were blunt. And blunt truth makes stakeholders nervous. Victoria called him into her office. No preamble. The board wants answers. Daniel nodded slowly. I stand by the data. I know, she replied. The question is whether you can defend it. His pulse tightened. This wasn't a team meeting. This was the board. 8 senior investors. 2 founding partners. People who could remove executives with a vote. And Daniel Carter, the former invisible analyst, was about to sit at their table. The boardroom felt colder than the rest of the building. Mahogany table. City view behind tinted glass. 8 pairs of experienced eyes evaluating him before he even sat down. One investor, Harold Whitmore, silver hair, legacy confidence, spoke first. So you're the one who triggered the panic. No welcome. No introduction. Daniel kept his voice level. I presented accurate projections based on current market variables. Another board member leaned forward. Your report cost us 12% in stock dip within 48 hours. Daniel didn't flinch. The stock dipped because the market fears transparency. A few eyebrows lifted. Victoria remained silent at the head of the table. Watching. Measuring. Harold steepled his fingers. You could have softened the language. Daniel met his gaze. With respect, sir, softened language would have created false security. A murmur traveled around the table. Daniel continued. Our client is overleveraged in 3 volatile sectors. Ignoring that to protect short-term stock perception would expose us to long-term collapse. Another member challenged him. You're new to this level. Do you understand what reputation management means? Daniel inhaled slowly. Yes. It means telling the truth before the market discovers it for you. Silence. Heavy. Measured. The kind of silence where careers pivot. Harold glanced toward Victoria. You promoted him. Victoria nodded once. I did. And you agree with this strategy? Her response was calm. I agree with integrity. That word shifted the room. Integrity. Not aggression. Not rebellion. Integrity. Daniel opened the projection slides. Walked them through the data. Line by line. No defensiveness. No ego. Just clarity. At minute 17 something subtle changed. The board stopped challenging. They started asking. By minute 28 Harold leaned back. And your proposed mitigation? Daniel clicked to the final slide. 3-phase restructuring. Client education campaign. Risk redistribution model. All already drafted. He had prepared for pushback before it came. Because survival had trained him to prepare for worst-case scenarios. When he finished, the room was quiet again. But different. Harold nodded once. Bold. Another board member added quietly, necessary. Victoria finally spoke. Transparency doesn't destroy companies. Concealment does. The vote to support Daniel's mitigation plan passed unanimously. Unanimously. And just like that, the former quiet analyst had defended strategy at the highest table in the building. But the real confrontation came afterward. As board members filtered out, Harold lingered. He approached Daniel directly. You're not what I expected. Daniel didn't smile. What did you expect? Harold studied him. Someone hungry for influence. Daniel replied simply, I'm hungry for stability. Harold's eyes narrowed slightly. For yourself. For my daughter. Something about that answer landed. Harold gave a small nod. Don't lose that. Then he left. The hallway outside the boardroom was lined with employees pretending not to watch. Word travels fast in corporate buildings. When the doors opened and Daniel walked out beside Victoria, upright and composed, the narrative shifted again. Not favoritism. Not protection. Competence. Mark had tried to frame him as unstable. The board had just witnessed controlled strength. Instant karma doesn't always remove enemies. Sometimes it forces witnesses to reconsider. That evening, Victoria stood in Daniel's doorway. You handled that well. Daniel exhaled slowly. I was terrified. She almost smiled. Good. Fear keeps ego in check. He hesitated. Why didn't you speak sooner in there? Because leadership isn't shielding someone, she said calmly. It's giving them room to prove themselves. He understood. She hadn't saved him. She'd positioned him. Big difference. Friday evening arrived. Lily's school play. A small auditorium filled with folding chairs and nervous parents. Daniel scanned the room. He didn't expect her to come. She had investors flying in from Boston. 3 pending acquisitions. But at 6:58 p.m., just before the curtains opened, Victoria Hale slipped quietly into the back row. No assistant. No entourage. Just her. In a simple coat. She caught Daniel's eye briefly. No wave. Just presence. When Lily stepped onto stage as a sunflower, oversized costume and all, she spotted Victoria in the audience. And she beamed. After the performance, Lily ran toward them. You came. Victoria crouched again. Eye level. I said I would. Lily threw her arms around her without hesitation. And for a second, just a second, the most controlled woman in the building looked startled. Then she hugged her back. Carefully. Like something fragile. Daniel watched that moment and understood something new. Power doesn't erase humanity. Sometimes it buries it. And sometimes, a simple accidental text can dig it back up. But as they walked out of the school auditorium, Daniel's phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line. Board follow-up, external audit review. From Harold Whitmore. Daniel opened it. 3 words in the preview. Concerns remain regarding. He stopped walking. Victoria noticed. What is it? He showed her the screen. She read it once. Then looked up. They're testing you. Daniel's stomach tightened. How? External audit review, she replied evenly. They want to examine your previous departmental data. A subtle accusation. Maybe even a setup. Because if they found anything questionable, even minor, it would undermine his credibility. And undo everything. Victoria's voice lowered slightly. Do you have anything to worry about? Daniel met her eyes. No. She nodded once. Good. Then she added quietly. Because if they're challenging you, they're challenging my judgment too. The stakes just doubled. As they reached their cars, Victoria paused. Daniel. He turned. You don't get to shrink now. Not after the boardroom. Not after Lily. Not after earning the seat. The external audit wasn't random. It was resistance reorganizing. The old guard testing the new order. An instant karma? It wasn't finished yet. Because when powerful systems push back, they don't whisper. They strike. Say it again. The audit lasted 12 days. 12 days of silence. 12 days of subtle glances. 12 days of executives pretending not to speculate while spreadsheets were dissected by an external firm hired directly by the board. No one said it outright. But everyone understood what it meant. If they found something, anything, Daniel's credibility would collapse. And with it, Victoria's. The narrative would flip overnight. He rose too fast. Must have been political. Knew it wouldn't last. Daniel didn't defend himself. He didn't over-explain. He did what he had always done. He worked. Steady. Methodical. Precise. At night, he read Lily bedtime stories while waiting for emails that didn't come. He checked numbers twice. Then 3 times. He wasn't afraid of the audit. He was afraid of the doubt it represented. Because doubt spreads faster than proof. On the 13th morning, another email arrived. Subject, Executive Assembly, 3 p.m. From Harold Whitmore. Not Victoria. The entire company was invited. That alone told Daniel everything. This wasn't quiet. This was public. If there was an issue, they would address it in front of everyone. If there wasn't, they would have to admit it the same way. The main conference hall filled again. Just like the day Mark was escorted out. But this time the tension felt heavier. The board sat at the front. Victoria stood beside them. Daniel took a seat in the first row. He didn't hide in the back anymore. At exactly 3 p.m., Harold stepped forward. He adjusted his glasses. Cleared his throat. We initiated an external audit of our strategic analytics division following recent structural changes. Murmurs rippled through the room. He continued. The purpose was to verify data integrity, projection transparency, and compliance with regulatory thresholds. Daniel felt every heartbeat in his chest. Harold glanced down at the report in his hand. Then back up. The findings were conclusive. Pause. Long enough to stretch nerves thin. No discrepancies were found. The room shifted. Not relief yet. Confusion. Harold continued. In fact, the audit identified that Daniel Carter's forecasting models reduced long-term exposure risk by an estimated 18% compared to previous frameworks. A full silence now. Not tense. Stunned. Harold stepped aside. Victoria moved forward. Her voice carried without effort. I authorized the initial internal review months ago. That surprised even Daniel. She continued. I suspected structural weaknesses in our leadership culture. She scanned the room. We removed one liability. Everyone knew she meant Mark. But integrity is not proven by removing one problem. She looked directly at Daniel. It is proven by pressure. Then she turned back to the employees. Daniel Carter was tested. Not cruelly. Not secretly. Systemically. And he did not bend. The room absorbed that. Not bend. She continued. Leadership at Hale and Rowe will no longer be determined by visibility, volume, or intimidation. She paused deliberately. It will be determined by accountability. Then came the line no one expected. Effective immediately, Daniel Carter will oversee the implementation of a company-wide ethical performance initiative. Gasp. A ripple of surprise. That wasn't a promotion in title. It was power and influence. Victoria wasn't just elevating him. She was institutionalizing his values. After the assembly ended, employees approached him differently. Not cautiously. Not resentfully. Thoughtfully. A junior associate said quietly, "Thank you for not playing their game." A senior manager nodded and said, "You changed the temperature in here." Respect doesn't always come from winning. It comes from standing firm when losing would have been easier. That evening, Daniel sat alone in his office. The city lights reflected in the glass. He thought about the first day. The text. The whisper. Say it again. There was a knock at his door. Victoria entered. No blazer again. Just composed calm. "You handled that well," she said. Daniel gave a small smile. "I didn't do anything." "You didn't need to." She walked to the window. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said quietly, "Do you know why I built this company the way I did?" He shook his head. "Because I believed strength required distance." She paused. "I was wrong." That was not a sentence people heard from Victoria Hale often. "My brother died because a hospital administrator concealed risk reports to protect funding," she said calmly. Daniel felt the weight of that. Transparency would have triggered reform sooner. Her voice didn't shake, but it carried memory. "I don't tolerate concealment." She turned toward him. "And when you texted me, 'I miss you,' it reminded me of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years." Daniel understood. Loss doesn't disappear. It hardens. Until something soft breaks through it. His phone buzzed. A message from Lily. Mrs. Calloway had helped her type it. "Did you win today, Daddy?" He smiled. Victoria noticed. "Well?" she asked. He typed back. "Yes. But not the way I thought." Then he stood. "There's something I need to say." Victoria tilted her head slightly. He met her eyes. "Thank you." Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just honest. She studied him for a second. Then said softly, "Say it again." He smiled. "Thank you." She nodded once. "You're welcome." No applause. No grand music. Just two people standing in a quiet office, understanding that something foundational had shifted. The company changed slowly after that. Policies tightened. Anonymous reporting systems strengthened. Promotion metrics adjusted to reward collaboration and data integrity. Gossip didn't vanish. But it lost power. Because everyone had witnessed what happened when someone tried to weaponize it. Instant karma doesn't always strike with lightning. Sometimes it audits. Sometimes it exposes. Sometimes it elevates the very person people tried to undermine. 1 year later, Hale and Rowe posted its highest ethical compliance rating in company history. Client retention rose. Employee turnover dropped. The board credited strategic transparency. But inside the building, people credited something else. A quiet man who didn't shrink. A CEO who chose integrity over ego. and 3 words that accidentally rewrote the culture. That night, Daniel tucked Lily into bed. She looked up at him sleepily. "Daddy?" "Yeah." "Are you important at work now?" He smiled softly. "I try to be useful." She considered that, then whispered, "I miss you when you're gone." He kissed her forehead. "I miss you too." Across town, Victoria stood alone in her high-rise apartment. City lights flickering below. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Just 3 words. No mistake this time. "I miss you." She read it, then whispered quietly to herself. "Say it again." It's easy to underestimate the quiet ones. Easy to mistake humility for weakness. Easy to believe power belongs to the loudest voice in the room. But sometimes, the man you overlook is the one holding the line. And sometimes, the words meant for a child become the words that expose an entire system. Respect everyone, because you never know who is standing quietly waiting for their moment. And when justice comes, it doesn't shout. It stands and says it again.